Welcome back, Fantasy Fiction Fanatics. It's good to see you again. I'm very sorry about being gone the last week and a half or so. It's been really crazy for me because I am in the process of moving and I'm visiting family for the holidays and everything like that. So it's been really crazy, and I had planned to film the videos and I just haven't had a chance to. So I'm very, very sorry about being gone, especially when you're probably like, I want to be reading the next section of the book. So I'm really, really sorry about that. As you can see, my background is different. I'm filming at my parents' house right now since I'm visiting them. And I just wanted to quickly check in with you guys and everything like that and let you know why I've been gone. And also, I had a suggestion from a family member of mine that I thought was really good. Is he mentioned that I had really long videos with the hour-long classes that I'm doing, but a lot of people can't necessarily watch a whole hour-long video, that it's a long time commitment. So he suggested doing some shorter mini videos that come from the lessons for people who don't have as much time to watch the whole video, and they can still get something from my channel. So I thought that I would really quick do that for you today. Since I'm not totally sure when the next full video is going to be. It's going to depend on if I have time to film while I'm at my parents' house, or if I can get it up really quickly or whatever. So we're going to see how long it takes me to get the next video out, and I'm very, very sorry about that, but I will try to get one out as quickly as I can and keep you updated. It might be after my move. Maybe if I'm lucky, I can get it in before then. So sorry again about that, but I will try to get the next video out as soon as I possibly can. In the meantime, I do hope that you enjoyed this little mini video. I thought for the first one, we would go back to the very first video of Dragonlance, chapters 1 through 5, where we talked about point of view and kind of focus. I'll just have the video focus on that point of view from my lesson on that day. Hope you enjoy, and I'll see you in the next video. Let's start actually talking about the book. I think we should start with point of view because that is the first thing that is obvious when you read a book. You pick it up, you look at the first page, and you either see I, or we see he, she, they, that kind of stuff, or their names or something like that. So obviously we're starting with a book that is in third person for this, which makes, in my opinion, makes sense that we have so many characters, it's hard to pick one character for it to be the point of view from. And it's also third person limited through most of it, which means we don't really have an omniscient narrator that knows everything or whatnot. We have one character who is explaining what's happening from their point of view. And it changes. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but we do have a lot of changing of characters throughout these chapters. I didn't actually notice this before I started reading it this time. I never really noticed it before until I was looking for it. And I realized, actually, throughout the chapters, the point of view changes a lot. And I started writing down how in my notes how often it changed. And so even in the first chapter, we start out with Flint. And we see Flint coming down the road, which he's the only character, so that would make sense why it would be from his limited point of view. But then we have it start off that, and once we get to page 14, it switches so smoothly that you almost don't notice that it switches to Tanis. And it becomes Tanis's point of view. And it comes more from what he's thinking, what he's feeling, how he's seeing things versus how Flint was seeing things. And that happens throughout all of the chapters. There's little bits and pieces where you get hints and those bits and pieces of those other characters and their thoughts in those particular moments. Most of the time, it's from Tanis's point of view. But then we have these small switches where it switches to somebody and it switches back to him. And the next chapter, it switches back and it switches to him. A couple times we even have where it switches to being an omniscient narrator, and then it pulls in to Tanis or one of the other characters. What do you think of that? Did you notice it? Like I said, I didn't notice it from my other previous readings, but this time I noticed, and I thought it was so interesting how they can make it so smooth that it's almost indetectable, and it's only detectable when you're looking for it. So what does it do to have it to be in the third person? We have it in third person versus first person, and a first person is usually very personal. So we have it third person, which we already said, we have a lot of characters, so it makes sense why it would be a third person one. But what does it really do? How does it really affect the characters and the way we perceive the story? I find that with a book like this, it affects it in the fact that we see it more as a person on the outside looking in. We are really aware that we are not in this story personally, because that's where the I comes from. Makes it very personal. It makes it very in depth with the character. But this one, it leaves us enough apart that we know that we are looking in on this story. How do you feel about that? It's interesting. It's more of a personal question. That's not really a right or wrong answer on how it makes you feel, but it is something to keep in mind, especially if you are a writer trying to write books, is why do you want someone to feel that way? What makes it appropriate versus something like a first person where you really want them to know, be involved, and almost feel like they are the character? I find it makes this more like a movie. You're watching it and seeing it happen, which I find for Dragonlance, and reading it several times, is that I personally feel like it's a good choice to go with this kind of high fantasy and with the amount of characters that she's doing, that they are doing, sorry. And you can switch back and forth like they do, not just between chapters, but also between, in the middle of the chapters. And it goes so smoothly that way that it's undetectable, and it's just like you're still continuing to watch, and you just get these tidbits here and there of other characters' thoughts that really contribute to what the author wants you to know. What are these tidbits exactly, though? I think we should look at a moment or two where we can see what they actually bring. Like if we are looking from another person's point of view, how it wouldn't work. So let me really quick find a section here. Let me look and see what I think would be a good one. Let's go more toward the end. Let's go to chapter 5 when they're fleeing. So we've got Tanis's point of view to start off with. Okay, so for me, we've got Tanis's point from chapter 5 all the way up to page 53, where we get to Strum's perspective. So we start off with Tanis. Let me read just a little bit. Let's see. You're going to put all of us in one boat, Flint says in horror. You're mad, half-elf. It's a big boat, Tanis said. No, I won't go. If it were one of the legendary white-winged boats of Tarsus, I still wouldn't go. I'd rather take my chances with the theocrat. Tanis ignored the fuming dwarf and motioned to Strum. Get everyone loaded up. We'll be along in a moment. Don't take too long, Strum warned. Listen. I can hear, Tanis said grimly. Go on. What are those sounds? Goldmoon asked the knight as he came up to her. Goblin search parties, Strum answered. Those whistles keep them in contact when they're separated. They're moving into the woods now. Goldmoon nodded in understanding. She spoke a few words to Riverwind in their own language, apparently continuing a conversation Strum had interrupted. And see, right there, we already know. It's a little bit before then, but that's when you definitely know we've switched to Strum's point of view, because now it says Strum had interrupted. So before, we were having Tanis ignored. So it's from his point of view. Now we have Strum had interrupted. But it's so seamless. But the tidbit that we get here is now, instead of seeing the bit with Tanis and Flint speaking to each other, we get the important part of interacting with the barbarians that Strum has. And that is the part that Tracy and Margaret, there we go, wanted us to have. It's not really as important of what, at least in their perspective, is they did not want us to know necessarily what Tanis and Flint were talking about. They want us to see this interaction between Strum and the barbarians. I'm going to read just a little bit more. The big plainsman frowned and gestured back toward the forest with his hand. He's trying to convince her to split with us, Strum realized. Maybe he's not enough woods lore to hide from goblin enough search parties for days, but I doubt it. So then if we drop down, so we still got more. He's talking to her, talking about her background. So that's what the important part is, the background between her and Riverwind. They're in the boat. Then on page, let's see where it says. Page 55 is what I have written down here. Okay. Then we have, as we go down, and Tanis runs back up, we've got Tanis patted Caramon on the back, then climbed in. The warrior pushed the boat out into the lake. He was up to his knees in water when they heard a call from the shore. Hold it! It was Flint running down from the trees, a vague moving shape of blackness against the moonlit shoreline. Hang on, I'm coming! Stop, Tanis cried. Caramon, wait for Flint. Look, Strum half rose, pointing. Lights had appeared in the trees, smoking torches held by goblin guards. Goblins, Flint, Tanis yelled. Behind you! Run! The dwarf never questioned, put his head down and pumped for the shore, one hand on his helm to keep it from flying off. I'll cover him, Tanis said, unslinging his bow. With his elven sight, he was the only one who could see the goblins behind the torches. Fitting an arrow to his bow, Tanis stood as Caramon held the big boat steady. Tanis fired at the outline of the lead goblin. The arrow struck it in the chest and it pitched forward on its face. So we can see that by going back to Tanis's perspective from Strum's, is we get to see the part, like, we see the goblins rushing forward. We see him shooting them. We know what it's like and how no one else can because of his elven eyesight. So it's those kind of little tidbits that we get that allow the switches to be so smooth but also important. So it's smooth because we get it to quickly change to this, and it seems like it's effortless because we're adding information that we need. But then it's also important because we do need that information, if that makes any sense. They're both linked together, and I find it very interesting that they can do it so smoothly. And as me personally, as a writer, it's very hard to switch between different points of view, and I often like the first point of view best because I like being really close up and personal with my character. I like feeling more in depth with it, but I find books like this, you do feel in depth on it just because you see so many of the characters, and it develops the characters, helps bring their personalities out because you see a little bit here and there throughout the book, not just through chapter to chapter, but through sentence to sentence. So just keep that in mind. See if you have any comments for how you feel about it, if you noticed it, if you didn't notice it, how if maybe in the future you'll have some notice of what you get from it. Just let me know.